Hi everyone, my name's Brad and I am that busy baker dad. Welcome to my kitchen. Today you're going to learn how to make gluten-free bread. So back in the beginning of 2019, my wife became diagnosed with anorexia nervosa. I won't go into specifics, but due to a lot of stressful factors, this terrible illness took hold of her. Eventually, she did get hospitalized and she spent several months in the hospital before doctors would allow her to return home. So in the meantime, to help pay bills and stuff, I started a small bakery out of my home. It's legal where I'm from. So I got my license and started baking out of my house, just in the after hours after working my full-time job. And just an FYI, I did go to school for baking and also worked off and on in different bakeries for about 9 years. I even ran my own coffee shop bakery for about 3 years. So once my wife was out, things were still a really big struggle for her, but I couldn't be more proud of her for how hard she was fighting. While she was home, we began to notice she'd go through these spells where she would get these severe migraines, severe headaches, to the point where she was bedridden for days. We thought maybe it was the medications she was taking. But after doing some research and a lot of trial and error, we discovered that she had become gluten intolerant. Apparently, this is a possible side effect of anorexia. So to reduce gluten in the house, I shut down the home bakery because I really didn't need it, as she was finally able to return back to work herself. We would just buy our gluten-free stuff in the store, but after a few months and me being a baker, I grew really tired of the crap that you would buy in a store. Like, it was just tasteless, like cardboard. So I started to research into making my own gluten-free bread. And then COVID hit the world. My wife lost her job, and trips to the grocery store were, as you all know, such a pain in the ass. So to save money and trips to the store, I nosedived into making my own gluten-free bread, something that we could at least enjoy. For anyone that has made gluten-free things before, you know how difficult and frustrating it can be. But don't give up. As I continue to make gluten-free things and trial and error, I will teach you how to do it, saving you a lot of time and frustration. The bread we make today will be soft, delicious, and it freezes extremely well. We actually keep it in the freezer the whole time and then just pull out however many slices that we need. One note before we get started, we will be doing things by weighing out the ingredients. The reason for this is that baking is a science, and having different proportions of different things can create totally different results. Do you ever wonder why when you're baking and you follow the exact same recipe that you get different results sometimes? It's because when you scoop 1 cup of, say, flour, you're not scooping the same amount every time. We'll do a little experiment in a little bit, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. At first, going by weight will seem a little bit weird. It's just because you're not used to it, but you'll soon realize that going by weight will go a lot faster and you'll have way less dishes. I just use this little scale here. I got it for like $11 and I've had it for almost 20 years. All right, let's get into making the bread. Okay, so I got my scale and my bucket set up because first we're going to start with making our own rice flour. I just bought whole rice and ground it up in a magic bullet. To me, that was just easier than trying to order the small bags of, like the Bob's Red Mill pre-ground stuff. It's a little bit grainier because obviously it's not super high powered blender, but I actually prefer the texture of it this way. So We're just going to turn our scale on. And we're going to start with 1 pound, 8 ounces of rice flour, just white rice flour. So there's 1 pound and 8 ounces. So there's that. And now we're going to go with ground up brown rice flour. So we're just going to zero out our scale again. And pour it in. There's that. And our last rice flour we're going to add is sticky rice flour. And we're going to also do 1 pound, 8 ounces of that. I will be putting the recipe in the description below, and I'll have everything written out there so you don't have to watch this video 700 times over. All right, so there's our rice flours.
So I didn't show it, but next we scaled 1 pound, 4 ounces of tapioca flour. We just added this right to the other flour that we had previously scaled.
So I'm going to zero this out again. And the last component of our gluten-free flour blend is xanthan gum. And we're going to do 1 1/4 ounces. One and a quarter. Now we're just going to give this a quick stir just to blend all those ingredients together. So we're just going to stir this by hand real quick. It doesn't take long. I do apologize for the noise in the background. One of the cats decided it's a great time to play with a very noisy ball right now. Okay, for that little experiment that I was talking about earlier about weight. So hopefully you can see the numbers on the scale okay. But so a number of different ways people like to scoop their flour when they're using cups is, for myself, I just scoop it, give it a shake, and put it in. If you can see the numbers, it's reading 6 3/8 of an ounce. So now we'll just dump that back in. Make sure our scale's at 0 again. And another way people like to do it is, I've seen it said to just gently scoop it in, fill your cup up by scooping it. Scoop it, and then level it off like so. So let's weigh this out. And now you see that it's reading 5 5/8 of an ounce. Hopefully you can see that. So we'll dump this back in again and zero it out. And now another way is people say to pack it down. So we'll take our scoop, we'll pack it down, top it up. The other problem with packing it down is everyone packs it down harder or lighter. So how can you be exact this way? And now we'll weigh this one. and now that's reading 7¼ ounces. So you can clearly see that scooping a scoop of flour every time, you're going to get different results. And this was just in 1 cup of flour. A lot of recipes call for like 2-3 cups. Well, if every time you're getting different amounts, how can it be accurate? It's no wonder that your recipes a lot of times don't turn out. So that's our little experiment. Let's actually get into making this bread now. So I'm just going to dump this out. Now the first thing we want to do is prepare our pan. So this is going to make 1 loaf. So the way I like to do it is we're going to grease the pan just with some vegetable shortening. Or you can use lard or whatever you want, but this is what I do. So I just use my hands and rub it all around and up the sides. Make sure you get those corners. I'm just going to wash my hands now. All right, now we're just going to take a scoop of our gluten-free flour. Doesn't matter how much. And we're just going to, I just tap it around. And then I bring my bucket and I just spread that all around the sides as well. Just so everything's nicely coated. And then all the excess you can dump back into your bucket. So our pan is prepped. Let's get to scaling our ingredients. So I've just got a small bowl. We're going to put all our dry ingredients in here. So we're going to start with turning on our scale, of course, but 1 pound of our gluten-free flour. All right, so we're done with that. Get that out of the way. And now we're gonna do 1/4 ounce of xanthan gum. This is just to give it a little bit extra kick. 1/4 ounce. Zero that out. We're gonna do 3/4 ounce of baking powder. And now 1/4 ounce of salt. And you can see I didn't pre-scale anything. So what did I say? 1/4 ounce of salt, yeah. And 1/4 ounce of yeast. So there's all our dry. We're just gonna mix this up and we'll set it off to the side for now. Okay, we grabbed a larger bowl now. Now we're going to scale our wet ingredients. So we're gonna start off with 2 3/4 ounces of honey. Nearing the end of the bottle on this one. We got one. There's our honey. So we'll zero that out. And now we're going to go with 1/3 of an ounce of apple cider vinegar. There's our 1/3 of an ounce. And now we'll do 1.5 ounces of olive oil. Okay, we can shut that off because next we have 2 eggs. And lastly, 1 1/3 cup of hot water. Okay, we're just going to mix this all together. Okay, now we're going to slowly start adding our dry into the wet. That's why you want to scale the wet into a larger bowl. So we're just going to do a little bit at a time. Make sure it's all incorporated. Once it's mostly mixed together, we are going to switch to just a little hand mixer with the paddles on. The reason for this is, as you can tell, it's a very soft batter. So we're just going to mix this for about 3 minutes on medium speed. So there we go, we're all mixed up. Now we're just going to pour it into our pan, which is already prepared. Just use a spatula and scrape it all in. Okay. Now I just filled my measuring cup up with some hot water. So now we're gonna kind of push this down and smooth it out with our fingers. You want to wet your fingers in between just so it doesn't stick to you very much. Okay, now with this, you want to try to make it as smooth as possible, because if you have giant lumps in it, that's how it's going to come out. This doesn't take very long, so you don't have to be worried about that. I just kind of swirl it around, dip my fingers in, and smooth it out. There we go. Now, one thing I like to do is I'll grab a sharp knife and I like to make 2 quick cuts along the top, not very deep. And the reasoning for this is just when it starts to rise up and when it bakes in the oven, this kind of controls where it'll split. If you just left it, it might turn out fine, but it also might, you'll get a big blister on the side like this, and that's just something you don't really want. So make the cuts, and then you kind of control where it's going to open up and release those gases. So now we're just going to set it in a warm spot to rest for about 30 minutes. Okay, so our half hour is up, and this is what it looks like so far. And that's about as big as you want it. You don't want it too high over the pan, otherwise it's just going to spill over once it rises in the oven. So we're going to throw this in. There we go. And now we're just going to set our timer for about 45 minutes. That's when we'll check it. Okay, so our timer went off, and now we're just going to take a look on it. See, that jumped quite a bit. Now I can tell that this needs just a few more minutes. So we're going to pop this in for, we'll say, another 10 more minutes. The reason we're going to leave it a little bit longer is we want the outside a little bit darker, just due to the fact that gluten-free bread is not as sturdy, so we want to make sure that crust is a little bit firmer. Okay, so the last 10 minutes are up, and it's perfect. It's a little bit darker, as you can see. So we're just going to pop that out, and we're going to lay it on its side to cool. The reason for this is because there's such a big loaf, and like I said, that the bread is a little bit, the structure's not as hard. If we laid it on its side like this, it'll eventually just collapse under its own weight. So we're going to do it on the sides. There will still be a little collapse, like you'll see the sides, but we're going to just wait a little bit, and then we're going to flip it over onto the other side. And yeah, there we go. Now we're just going to let it cool, and we can slice it up. So there you have it. If you follow these steps, you'll have delicious bread anytime you need it. I actually triple the recipe so I can do 3 loaves at a time. I started this video a little bit late, so it's about 1 in the morning now. So it's going to take a while for the bread to cool, so I'm going to go get some shut-eye, and I'll come back to you in the morning and we'll slice that up, and I'll show you just how soft and delicious this bread is. Good morning, everyone. I slept in a little bit. It's about 7:30 right now, but yeah, let's get to slicing up this bread. So here's our loaf of bread, and you will see that it did collapse in a little bit, but that's quite all right. Now we're just going to slice this, and you don't want to press too hard or you're going to squish your bread, but just let the knife do all the work. And just slice straight down. Now you can already see how soft this bread is. If you look, I'd say that's pretty darn good looking. It's nice and soft, and it's got a beautiful crust on it. So that's all I have for you for now. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe for more great recipes, crazy fantasy meads, and awesome family moments. And if you have any questions, comment down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you. And as always, stay happy, stay healthy, stay magical.